Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today's a very special topic and a very special guest we have on today to end our Starting a Business series. Now, before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by the Tax Minimization Program, which is a training program to ensure that you pay the least amount in taxes as legally possible while also having a solid bookkeeping foundation. You also have access to our team for general tax and accounting questions. It's like having an accountant in your back pocket with you on this entrepreneurial journey. Learn more at taxsavingspodcast.com/tax. I am your host, Mike Jesowshek. And as I kind of mentioned, today we have a special guest on. We have MJ Demarco, who is an international best-selling author. MJ, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and so you've been busy. You've been doing a lot of different things. And so the first book that you wrote was The Millionaire Fastlane. You cracked the code to wealth and live rich for a lifetime. And how long ago now was that from that first book?
Oh, that book is almost about 10 years old.
That's what I thought. You know, it's one that I have on the back of my bookshelf, and I even come back to it. Every once in a while, just read through it, and I'm weird when I do reading. I kind of fold pages when I find something that I really like. And you should see your book on my shelf. It's like every single page is folded. So it's when I go back to kind of follow up on it, it's almost like rereading the entire book.
Yeah, and it's interesting is the book is actually probably more relevant today than it was when I wrote it 10 years ago. So, because a lot of books, they're kind of in vogue for a couple years or something's trendy or something. It actually sells better today than it did when I released it. So it's got some, the topics in there are pretty evergreen and relevant to any time that you read it. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. So, just for your information, we just finished up a series that we've been doing called Starting a Business. And really, this was a series to go through what a new business owner needs to know at a basic level, at a high level, from a tax and accounting standpoint. And that's why I reached out to you. I thought, what a great guest to have on as kind of a bookend to this, because of the things that you discuss in your books and online is just relates to this person that is looking to start a business or has started a business, and kind of what do those next steps look like. And so it just was a great fit for where we're at in our series.
Yes, excellent. That's why I agreed to come on, because it was a good fit.
Yeah. So, when I first started reading your books, I read The Millionaire Fastlane when it first came out. And one thing that it's inspired me, I just want you to know this, is that it inspired me to not think about in my career. And I started this, I read the book when it first came out, kind of near the beginning of my career, the starting point of a career. But it gave me the idea that not going down the traditional path or what everyone else does or says you should do is what you should do. And it has been an inspiration in my entrepreneurial journey, and kind of where it got me to today. And so after The Millionaire Fastlane, there was a book that came out that you wrote called Unscripted. And then most recently, the book that you wrote and came out this year, I believe, right, was The Great Rat Race Escape?
Yep, The Great Rat Race Escape.
Yeah, and I actually just finished this one up probably about a month ago or so, and that was a good one. So any of those who have not been listening or have not read the other books in MJ's series, I definitely recommend checking it out. But just as a starting point, MJ, can you give our listeners kind of an outline of your story and entrepreneurial journey? Basically, where did you start and how did you get to where you are today from that?
Sure. I was turned on to entrepreneurship at a very young age. When I was, I don't even know, when I was 12, 13 years old or so. At the time I lived with a single mother. Putting food on the table was always an issue. Typical lower middle class household, close to poverty type of thing. And I knew I did not want that type of existence as I got older. And one day I saw, as I was at the ice cream store in front of it and fulfilling I was kind of pudgy back then. So I was just, medicating myself with more ice cream. I saw my dream car, which was a Lamborghini Countach, a white Lamborghini Countach. And there was a young guy in it. And to me, that was like, what? Because today we're taught that, you get rich by waiting 40, 50 years, for stock market magic. So I was bold, and I went up to the guy and actually stalked him, waited for him to return to his car, and asked him what he did for a living. And in so many words, he said he was an entrepreneur. So at that very moment, I was turned on to entrepreneurship as a vehicle for wealth, fast wealth, getting wealth young, as opposed to, you're supposed to save and work for 50 years type of thing. So that put me on the path to wanting to become an entrepreneur. And I always thought that, the only way to get rich, in your 20s, 30s, or 40s was you had to be an actor, an actress, a professional baseball player, something of that nature. But this little incident, that probably spanned about 12, 14 minutes, changed my life because it put me into that framework that, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Now, it took me a good, 12, 13 years for that mentality to actually match reality, where I finally actually had a business that was succeeding in making profits. I owned an internet company for 10 years, sold it once, and then actually was able to buy it back when the new owners promptly ran it into the ground. So I actually bought it back, and then I sold it again for a multi-millionaire valuation. At that point, I realized, oh my God, I don't have to work for another day in my life. And at this point, I believe I was like 36 or 30, 35 or so. And I said, oh my God, I don't have to work for another day in my life. What do I want to do? And I said, oh, you've always loved to write. I used to write stories when I was a little boy and just, give them to my mother. So I said, you know what, I'm going to start writing books. And one of the first ones I wanted to write was The Millionaire Fastlane, because I wanted to show people, this is the life I have, and this is how you can do it too. Because, my prior 10 years of running a business, I realized and learned so much about, it's not just any entrepreneurship that is able to create fast wealth. It has to be a particular kind of entrepreneurship. So I wanted to write about that, show people how it could be done. And then that book actually just has done phenomenally well over the years. It just gets more popular and more popular. It's kind of like a little underground cult book that you're not going to find, advertised in the mainstream news, but your buddy that's a millionaire might recommend it. It's that type of book. So once I realized that, oh my God, people want me to write more on this subject, I started doing that as well. So right now I've owned a publishing company for the last 10 years. I've written 3 books on the subject. They all kind of stand alone on their own, but they all synergistically work together. But at the end of the day, I'm living an absolute dream, and I have been for the last 20 years. And I'm here to tell you that the way society and culture wants you to live is probably not the way you want to live if you want to optimize your life with happiness and experiences and financial freedom.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that hits home to me so hard because, obviously I'm an accountant, CPA, and when I was going to school, it was like people were brainwashed. Basically, as if you want to be a CPA, here's your mentality. You go to school, you get your CPA, you go work for one of the big 4 accounting firms. Eventually, when you're older, you might become partner, or you might go work for a private company, and you retire at 65 with a good chunk of change because you spent the career as a CPA. And that is what everybody does, and that's kind of what they brainwash you to do. And that's what I saw all of my colleagues do when I was in college. And luckily, that's right about the time where I read The Millionaire Fastlane and said, wait, this doesn't have to be the route that you want to do. I don't need to go work for the big 4 and work 80-hour weeks for 15 years of my life just to make partner or just to make go to a private company or something like that. There is a different route that we can take. So when you see other individuals, other business owners, other young individuals that are kind of getting stuck in this mindset of kind of what you would call a sidewalk or a slow lane, kind of what recommendations do you have to kind of get out of that mindset, to kind of move people into this other idea that you mentioned within your books?
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of business owners, all they've done is create themselves a job. You know, they get to say they're their own boss, but they're still tied to time. They're still, if they don't work, they don't make money. So my books is about the sense, what I call the sense framework. And it's designed to optimize your life so that your business works for you, even when you're not available there. And that's really what we want to do. We don't want to create yourself a job where if you don't work, you don't make money. Well, no, we want you to be making money 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think a lot of people mistake that for, oh, that means an internet business. Well, that's not true. Yes, the internet is a big part of it, but it is not by default an internet business. And that's what the sense framework is about. It's these commandments that your business should ultimately meet at the end of the day. So if you start a business based on those guidelines, you'll be able to experience, hopefully, eventually, explosive income or explosive wealth, or what I call an asymmetric event. And that's pretty much was what we want to do, is be able to give ourselves access to those kinds of asymmetric events. An asymmetric event is, for example, the very first time I sold my business, I think I invested $900. I sold it for $1.2 million. That's an asymmetric event. A very little investment. Sure, I had a big time investment in that, but money-wise, it was only $900. And I was able to leverage my skills and know-how in marketing and whatnot to build a service that eventually could have been sold for 7 figures. And that's an asymmetric event. So we don't want to, hey, I want to, sell hot dogs on the corner. Because there's never at any time 10,000 people are going to line up to your hot dog cart and say, hey, I want to buy your hot dogs. First of all, you can't even get 10,000 people on the street corner. Second, you probably can't have 10,000 hot dogs in your cart. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, is there's the right type of business and then there's the wrong type of business.
That makes complete sense. And I would say, especially in the accounting industry, as a personal example, is so many accountants say, yeah, I'm going to go that different route. I'm going to start my own firm. But then they do get stuck in that type of path where, okay, you're starting your own, you're working for yourself, but you still have clients that you're ultimately working for that are taking so much time out of your every day. So when you talked about that sense framework and kind of those 5 commandments, from a very high level, what type of stuff are we looking at when we think about, okay, what is that business opportunity that has a potential for that asymmetric wealth?
Sure. Sense, CENTS, the saying I say to remember it is, if it makes sense, it makes sense. C stands for the commandment of control. You do not want anybody to be able to disrupt your business, one particular patriarchal entity or person to be able to destroy your company. For example, if you invented a product and Walmart was your only customer, well, that means Walmart at any time could say, hey, we don't want to sell your product anymore, and boom, you're out of business. So that's control, the commandment of control. East is the commandment of entry. If it takes you 5 minutes to get in business, guess what? You don't have a business. Entry means there has to be some barrier to entry to whatever you're doing, meaning, no Joe Blow off the street or living in his parents' basement cannot compete with you in a matter of minutes, days, or weeks. There has to be a certain process to getting your business off the ground, so that, it's not you're not competing with thousands of people, 2 days after you're successful. And a good example I use for that is, hey, I can press this button, I can sell T-shirts. Okay, well, so are a million other people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's not really a good business to start. Sure, you might get some experience on that, but it's not really a good business to start. N is need. It's the pinnacle of the entire framework. Is ultimately you have to provide value. You have to provide something that's needed, something that's wanted, something that fills an emotion or conjures an emotion, something that makes something convenient, anything. And I go into that really deeply in the last two books, Unscripted, with a term called value skew. That's another topic. But ultimately, you have to provide value. And here's another thing where society gets it wrong. That has nothing to do with passion, because a lot of the big thing in today's culture is follow your passion. Well, value and passion are not mutually exclusive. You can provide value and not be passionate about the particular product or industry or something. You do want to be passionate about your outcomes, about your achievement, about your growth, about how you're, setting yourself up for life. That's what you want to be passionate about. Mm-hmm. And then T stands for time. At some point, you have to be able to step away from your business and make money. As the old saying goes, if you want to get rich, you have to know how to make money while you sleep. So that means, like, for instance, during this interview, it'll probably last 45 minutes to an hour. I am guaranteed to make money while I'm sitting here talking to you. That's because I have established the commandment of time, meaning eventually you have to learn, you have to know, how to structure your business in a way that you can make money while you're not working. That's how you get your free time. That's how you get away from that dreaded time trade that we are trying to get away from. And the final one is scale. Scale is about where we can access those asymmetric returns we talked about. In other words, what is the size of your industry? How many people can you reach with your value? Again, with that hot dog story, there's not many people you can serve in one day with that. But if you have something that a lot of people around the country, or better, around the globe could use, and this is why the internet is so important nowadays, because it allows you to global markets. So is the value you're providing scalable into the thousands per day, thousands per month, millions per month? When I owned my internet business, I believe I serviced, it was a long time ago, I think it was like 1.5 million people a month.
Oh, wow.
That's where you come into asymmetric returns. So if you look at yourself, hey, I want to own a sandwich shop on the corner. Well, that's not scalable. You're not going to have tens of thousands of customers unless your objective, and this is okay, if your objective is to say, you know what, I want to own 20 of those sandwich stores around the city, then that's different. Then the scale starts to become possible. So that's the sense framework in a nutshell: control, entry, need, time, and scale. And this is all explained in any of my books that you pick up.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, I've really dove into that one, this past book. And one thing that caught my eye in that book that you mentioned especially kind of on that scale standpoint and sense in general, is that if you're new to business, it's best to target small wins. You're not necessarily going to have a full-fledged sense, meeting every one of those criteria or that framework from the beginning. But as you kind of gave that example of that hot dog stand, if you want to have 20 of those hot dog stands or 40 of them, and you want them all around the world, you can take something that maybe does not quite fit into that framework from the beginning, but you can adjust that business that you already have created to adjust into that framework to get that symmetrical return.
Yeah. And in the latest book I wrote, The Great Rat Race Escape, is actually a fictional novel of a story of a young couple trying to escape the rat race. And the business they start is not internet-based. It's actually a physical product. I'm not going to say what the product is because I don't want to give it away if anyone wants to read it. Mm-hmm. But they start selling a actual physical product, but of course they leverage the internet to scale it. So I think a lot of people, when they read my books or look at the sense framework, they think it means start an internet business, and that is not the case. There's a lot of opportunities now in hard lines, because I think a lot of young people immediately gravitate to the internet because it seems to be easier. Well, that ease actually makes it a lot harder.
Yeah. And that's another quote that I found, in one of your books. It says, the easier it is to start your venture, the harder it will be to succeed at it. And you kind of talk about that in the entry piece, is that, if you can start your business in 5 minutes and be up and live and running a business, that's probably not going to be your route to success.
Yeah. It's like a blog. I know how many people started blogs in 2010. Oh my God. There's 5-figure bloggers, making 5 figures a month. I'm going to do that. Boom. They press a button. They got WordPress installed, and now they're a blogger. Well, you know how many abandoned, empty blogs there are? Well, there's millions and gajillions of them because it's easy. Entry is easy. It's not the entry that's going to give you success. It's the process. So the process becomes harder and harder the easier it is, to get started on something like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, when a lot of people think and hear millionaire Fastlane, their idea is probably like Fastlane. That means like get rich easy. Mm-hmm. But I think what you're explaining in your books and even on this in the interview here is not that at all. We're not talking about millionaire Fastlane being get rich easy today.
Yeah. And let me be clear. Get rich quick is very real. I mean, I got rich quick. The youngest billionaires on the planet got rich quick. Thousands. I subscribe to businesses for sale, and you would be surprised that some of the young people in there, 28 years old, selling businesses for $6, $7, $8, $10 million. Mm-hmm. So get rich quick is very real with the right business system, the business structure. But let's be clear, it's not easy. It never was. And I think that's the distinction, is people, when they confuse get rich easy with get rich quick. Yes, you can get rich quick, but let's be clear, it's not going to be easy. Mm-hmm. However, it won't be as hard as getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning for the next 50 years and putting away 10% of your paycheck and then hoping for, that the government doesn't hyperinflate your money away. That's hard too. So I'm just saying it's going to be hard whatever you do. Why not take the hard route that has an asymmetric possibility where maybe you can retire 20, 30, or 40 years early and live the exact life you want to live?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I want to go back to that sense framework and kind of specifically discuss the letter N, or needs. So many people are starting businesses out. They might have all these different ideas. But one thing that kind of really caught my eye in your books is this thought of stop chasing money, what you think makes money, and start chasing needs, which I think directly relates to this. Mm-hmm. So when you're chasing those needs, or when you're trying to find out those needs, what are some ideas behind that thought process?
Well, it's actually quite simple, and it's funny because I've read a lot of business books in the last 10, 20 years, and I've never seen it written about. And it's kind of the reason why I write about it, is when you buy something, oftentimes you don't buy it simply because it's the best price. I'm looking at an Apple computer right now. Well, Apple computer is damn well not the best priced computer. We buy it for other reasons. And so people confuse need with, oh my God, I have to, invent the next Tesla, or I have to invent the next iPhone, or something very complicated. It all comes down to what I call value skew. And as I said, anytime you buy something, there's a reason why you bought it. There's something that takes you over the edge from a looker to a buyer. An example I use in my book is tortilla chips. Okay, you go to the store and you look on the shelf. There's a dozen different brands of tortilla chips. Well, more than likely, you're probably not going to pick the cheapest one. You're going to pick something else. Maybe the packaging is better. Maybe there was a funny story on the packaging. Maybe there was a different type of oil they used. Instead of cottonseed, they used avocado. Or maybe it's non-GMO corn. Maybe it's biodegradable packing. maybe, I don't know, whatever it is. There's a reason why you ultimately say, I'm going to choose that bag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all business decisions, buying decisions, consumer behavior comes down to something like that. So starting a business is not about inventing the next hottest gadget or disrupting some industry. If we're just getting started, just start skewing some value, meaning you are better at something than your competitor, just in one thing, because that one thing might be the reason why someone buys from you. So the technique I like to say is you reverse engineer all the value attributes in the particular industry or the product or service and see which ones you can do better on. So the ones you do better on are ones that give you more probability for having a buyer say, yes, that's the one I'm going to buy. Here is my money. So an example in my company, when I had my internet business, we were known to answer our email within 5 minutes. And we actually had people testing us. They would send us emails just to say hello because they wanted to see if we would respond within 5 minutes. Well, that's a value skew. Customer service is a value skew. Pricing is a value skew. Ingredients are a value skew. The way your website looks is a value skew. A good story on your website, why you're in business, why are you doing this? That could be a value skew. People can identify with that story. So that, in essence, is the need part of it. And it's not as complicated as people make it. And people get into business for all the wrong reason. Hey, what can I sell? Hey, my friend makes widgets. Can I sell it? That's not following need-based principles. That's following money. That's money chasing. I need to make money. What could I sell? And I get a lot of people like that. I run a forum. I get a lot of people like that. And you can immediately tell these people are chasing money and they don't have a damn chance.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. And that one thing that really caught my ear on that is this idea of you don't have to recreate the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you have to do a value skew. You have to provide a certain, whether that's customer service, pricing, whatever it might be, just do it better than how someone else is doing it. And that's your first value skew attempt.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you don't know what it is for everyone. Some people, it might be the best price, but more often than not, it isn't. It is something indiscriminate, something that may be minor to you, but is major to them. And so that's why, the more of those variables you can skew vis-a-vis the marketplace, the better chances you have at gaining traction in your business.
Yeah. And the thing I love about that is relevant to whether you own a business already or you're looking to start a business. If you own a business already, look at some of the problems or some of the needs that you might not be servicing. You might have bad customer service, and a competitor might be looking at and say, well, that's what we're going to do better. But you, being the business owner, can start to do that. You can start hitting these scents, the control, the entry, the need. You can start to look at your current business and say, hey, I'm not happy where I am. I'm just putting time in and nothing's really going anywhere. We're not growing the business. But that doesn't mean that you're in the wrong business. It just means you need to relook at that sense framework and how do you realign yourself?
Yes. How are the customers perceiving you? Why aren't, why? And a lot of times you can have value skew, but you're not presenting it properly or they don't discern it. So that could be part of the issue as well, which is marketing and presentation and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if I'm rephrasing this right because it was from your first book and it's been a while since I've most recently read it. But I remember you saying something like when you hear the word hate or I hate this or I hate this about something, that presents a business opportunity.
Absolutely. The words of disgust are opportunities. So when you hear someone, on social media or someone in your family saying, oh my God, I hate blank. I hate doing this. I wish this, I wish that. That's an opportunity. A good example of that is, I think it was probably about 8 years ago. There's a section on our forum where we can post ideas that people can grab and try to utilize. Mm-hmm. And I recognize, I hate moving because of the boxes. And I found that my sister at the time had some plastic bins and she had a bunch of them. So I borrowed a bunch of them, and it made the move so easy because you could stack them. They were durable, and then I returned them. And I thought, my God, that's a great business idea. You rent some bins, 30, 40 bins, use them for a week, and then return them.
Mm-hmm.
And I put that out there, and boom, 10 years later, that is actually a business in many cities around the country. And that's what I'm talking about, is just saying, I hate moving, and you realized you had a little solution there, and to parlay that into a business.
That's just incredible. And I think it goes to a point that you made earlier, is that as you're looking to go down this route, it's not that you have to create something that it doesn't exist. That is such a moving has been something that has been happening since the first of time. People have always moved. And so you're taking something that is already exists and just, again, doing that value skew to make it better. How can I make this easier? How can I solve a need? MJ hates boxes. Here's a need that we're solving.
Yeah. And the value skew of that is, look, you're doing environmentally friendly because you're not, throwing away boxes. They're reusable. So there's there's a bunch of skews there
Mm-hmm.
that would, appeal to different types of people, so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And again, you're not disrupting an industry. You're just adding value to the world.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let's just kind of go through your book. So we have The Millionaire Fastlane. We have your second book was called Unscripted. And then your third one is The Great Rat Race Escape. Explain to our listeners kind of is there a certain path you should read those in? Kind of who are they made for? At what stage in your business would you maybe want to dive into one book versus the other? Let's go through your books a little bit.
Sure. They're each stand on their own. So you can read them probably in any order.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, optimally, it would be them in the order I released them, which was Fastlane first, The Millionaire Fastlane, Unscripted, and then Unscripted Book 2, which is The Great Rat Race Escape. The Great Rat Race Escape is very unique in that it's actually a fictional story embedded with a bunch of strategies and principles. So that might be better for someone who needs a story to actually crystallize the concepts and principles. And in fact, I had someone say on the forum that they caught things that they didn't catch in the other two books. The guy was saying, he's like, oh my God, I didn't know starting a t-shirt business was a bad idea. I'm like, well, at what point did you read The Millionaire Fastlane and come out with the idea that selling t-shirts was a good idea? And the third book crystallized that notion for him. So they all stand on their own. They each took me 3 years to write because that was my challenge in making it. You don't know if someone's reading it for the first time and they don't know who the hell you are, or they're reading the third book the third time. So, but they all stand on their own. The Millionaire Fastlane is a little abrasive. As I said, I wrote it 10, 12 years ago. And it almost looks like I didn't write it because I've changed. I change pretty much every couple of years because you open yourself up to that and learning and becoming a different person. That's life. So it's a little different. It's a little, like as I said, abrasive. But I stand by everything that's written in there. It's more mathematical. Unscripted is more about, it's also business related, but it has a more of a macro view, like with life and culture and society. And then The Great Rat Race Escape kind of blends the two with both of the mathematics and the business and the life. Again, the objective here is not to start a business to pay your bills and get by and retire at 65 or 70. No, this is to change your life. This is to even perhaps change the lives of those who come after you, generations. And that's the way I operate. If you're going to do something, do it that has an impact that can transcend the ages.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now, I'd say more just a personal question, where you're at today. Having that ability to quote unquote retire at a young age, but still you still have something out there that's motivating you, something that's pushing you. And for your scenario, it's been writing books. It's something that you've loved to do, and you've done
Mhm.
a great job at writing those books. Where's your future look? Do we have more books coming out from MJ? Kind of where does this look? Where do you go next in your retirement?
I would love to write. I don't want to say writing fiction, like stories, mysteries, novels, and thrillers. I have a bunch of ideas jotted down on paper. So I would like to get into that eventually. I might have one more book in me with respect to, money and entrepreneurship. But I really would like to get involved in storytelling. That's kind of what the Great Rat Race Escape was, my first foray into that storytelling mode.
Mm-hmm.
I also have some other side ventures that I'm partners in. I don't want to call them startups because I think that's a loaded word, but just we saw some needs in the publishing business, and so I'm kind of have a small business there that we're trying to launch. We're going to see how that goes, but really the sky's the limit. I can do what I want when I want. I can, just basically do nothing all day if I wanted to, and that's how I like it. That's the point of a millionaire Fastlane, is to get to this point where you can do things that may not be actually, economically viable. Writing books, is often not very, very profitable. It's like starving artists. But if you have enough money to live the way you want to live, you can do that. You can play guitar. You can go start a band. You can go on tour. You can start a garden. You can do things that where money is not an issue. And, in today's day and age, there's, they're trying to redefine financial freedom with this concept of, hey, we live in a trailer. We don't eat out. We shit in a bucket. We buy cheap food and we're financially free. Well, no, you're not financially free. You're being financially ascetic as you're downsizing your life to such extremes that you're not living. You're just sitting there. Yeah, you own your time, but you don't have financial freedom because you're limited by what you can buy and experience based on having no money. So, if you're a bum living on the street, you also have time freedom. So, I want to be clear that there's an attempt out there to redefine financial freedom into this ascetic type of lifestyle where you brainwash yourself into believing, hey, I can be happy with one T-shirt, living in 200 square feet, and that's what people are starting to do. And hey, if that's what you want to do, and you want to call that financial freedom, more power to you. But I think it's more of a it's a scam than anything.
Yeah, and you're seeing that all over the place now. Well, MJ, I just want to say, when I see stories like this, someone that started at a young age, came from poverty or lower income, and has been able to do what you've done without having that wealth that you brought with you. You didn't inherit anything. You didn't inherit your business. It's just such inspiration out there for those that are just starting a business, and the fact that you then took that on and had been willing and able to share that with other people that are looking to go that similar route. And you've been doing that through books and through your forum and things like that. So I just want to say thank you. And for those that are looking to check out your books and dig deeper into those, where would you recommend sending them as far as if they're looking to get started on your book?
I would say the audio books are the best, which they're all on Audible. And I want to be clear that, and I think this is important, none of my books upsell anything. I don't offer any training programs. I don't have $10,000 seminars. I don't have $997 courses. I don't have anything. If the most money I could earn from someone with my wisdom and knowledge, and it's about 60 hours if you buy all 3 books, is about $30. So, and I want to be clear because that to me was very important when I was growing up and I was looking for solutions and answers. I could never understand. Well, if you have the wealth secret, why are you charging me $9,000 for it? Why are you charging me $997 a month for the next 3 months? I don't understand. So for me, it was very important to do this without having any of that bullshit that you can buy something for $10 and change your life. So, and I stick to that. And I've stuck to that for 10 years, and I will stick to that for the rest of my life.
No, that's great. And I would even say, to go above and beyond that, you also have a forum, and that forum is free, and you interact in that forum. And to be honest with you, I've gotten a lot of great information out there. I've been able to interact and network with a lot of other entrepreneurs going the same route. So I would say you even take it a step further. You're not asking for anything over and above the book cost or trying to sell anything else, but you even have further free resources for these people looking to learn more about this area.
Yeah, and I'm at the forum contributing probably every single day. So if you introduce yourself over there's a good chance I'll read it, and there's even a good chance that I will respond to it. And that's value skew, because you actually get to interact with someone that you read about. So that's practicing what I preach there.
And where can people find the forum?
Oh, I'm sorry. thefastlaneforum.com.
Excellent. MJ, this has been incredible. You have a lot of great nuggets in here, and this is just the starting point to kind of what you touch on in your books and the learning that can be done around this new way of thinking, that we don't have to do what everybody else does. We don't have to do what society has made us to believe is the way to wealth at 65, 70 years old. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time out today. I know you're a busy man, and it really means a lot to us and our listeners to have you here.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, MJ.
You bet.
All right, that's a wrap on our discussion with international best-selling author MJ Demarco. A ton of golden nuggets shared today. If you enjoyed our episode, please share with others on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and so many more. Please also take a second to leave a review on wherever you listen to the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast. That's it for this episode, and I will see you guys next week.